All right, so now that we've taken care of the inverse sine and inverse cosine, we need to do a quick little review here, defining of your functions. So your domain for your sine and your cosine, so your x values can only be between -1 and 1. Same thing for your arc cosine and your cosine, can only be between -1 and 1. The range for your arc sine, those are from -pi/2 to pi/2. So that means you're going to be in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. And then for your arc cosine, that's from 0 to pi. So these are in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. Now your arc tangent, your x values can be from -infinity to infinity. So this is all real numbers. So you don't have any restriction for your arc tangent. Those can be all real numbers. If you think about the graph of a tangent, you know it kept going up forever and going down forever, so you can include all those values. For your sine function and for your cosine, those are between -1 and 1. Now for your range, the tangent is similar to your sine or arc sine because it is only possible, those values are only possible in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. The big thing you have to worry about in quadrant 4 is when you have your circle, and so let's draw a circle here. When you're in quadrant 4, the only thing you really have to be careful of is when you label your points. Okay, so this is 0 and 2 pi. This, we have a point here which is 11 pi over 6. We have another point here which is 7 pi over 4. Oh, I don't know what that is. And then we have another point down here on the bottom which is that 5 pi over 3? Now the problem is none of those points are in this interval because this is from -pi/2 to pi/2. These are all bigger than a pi/2. So what you have to do is you have to use the values for their coterminal. So instead of saying 11 pi over 6, you'd have to say -pi/6. Instead of saying a 7 pi over 4, you'd have to say -pi/4. And instead of saying a 5 pi over 3, you have to say -pi/3. Same thing down here at 3 pi over 2, you can't say 3 pi over 2, you have to say -pi/2, because those are all defined in these intervals, okay? So, our inverse tangent function, and here it's defined on the same values as sine, so on the same intervals, I should say. That's where your values are in quadrant 1 and quadrant 3. You don't have any restrictions on your y values, so your y values can be anything. So what we need to do is we need to figure out where is our arc tangent equal to 0. So this really means where is the ratio of y over x equal to 0. This is what you're trying to find. So if we go back to our circle, well, we really only have 3 points on our circle where we have zeros. So you have a point and where it's defined. So this is defined from -pi/2 to pi/2. So we're in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. So we got to think of our ordered pairs. Well, we have a 0, 1 up here. We have a 0, -1 here. And over on this point at 0, we have 1, 0. So we need to figure out what ratio of y over x gives us a 0. Well, if you look at the top at pi/2, we're going to find out that y is 1, x is 0. So 1 over 0. That is, contrary to popular belief, not 0. It is undefined. If we are at -pi/2, same thing here. If you take -1 over 0, that's going to be undefined. So your only value, can be at 0. Because here your x is 1, your y is 0, but you can take a 0 divided by 1 and get a 0. Now this is at 0 because it's on the interval. You can't say 2 pi. 2 pi is outside. It is bigger than pi/2. So for our answer, you're going to have to say the arctan of 0 is 0 at 0. Lots of zeros there. So there's that answer. Now we can find out where our arc tangent is -1. So here we need to figure out where is our ratio. Where is y divided by x equal to a -1. Well, if it's going to be negative, that must mean that we're going to be down in our fourth quadrant. But we got to think of our point. Okay, it's not going to be 1, 0 or 0, negative 1. Maybe it's at this point at negative pi over 6, which would be the ordered pair of radical 3 over 2 comma negative half. Maybe it's at this point here, which is negative pi over 4. We have the ordered pair of radical 2 comma negative radical 2. Or maybe it's down here on the bottom at negative pi over 3, where we go a 1/2 comma negative radical 3 over 2. So if we're trying to find where, if we divide y divided by x, we need to figure out where is we going to get a negative 1. Well, it can't be radical 3 over 2 and a negative 1/2, because if you take a 1/2 divided by radical 3, that's not going to work out. Same thing down here with a pi over 3, those aren't going to work. So your only option is if you take this y of negative radical 2 over 2 divided by a positive radical 2 over 2, that is going to give you a negative 1. So your answer is actually at negative pi over 4. Ta-da! Man, where's little Mike when you need him?